Hey folks, Tim here from Rockout Videography again. I have here what I think is the best bass in the world. This bass has a story. We're going to talk about what exactly it is, how we can know that, dive just a little bit into Fender Vintage Series basses, and I'm going to play it so you can hear what it sounds like. Stick around, we have a lot of cool stuff to cover. First things first, I posted a video about this bass 2 years ago, and it turns out I made some mistakes, so this video replaces that one. I have always known this bass as an American-made Fender 62 Reissue Precision Bass. I thought from memory that I had bought it in 1991, and remember being told it had a date of October 18th. Brad was the first to point out my mistake in the previous video and thought I had actually bought it in 1993. There's photos and video of me playing my blue Washburn Force ABT jazz style bass from late 92 and early 93, which I sold to help pay for this bass, so Brad has to be right about the year. So, how do you date one of these and verify what it is? The serial number is on the neck plate and starts with a V. You can often date a Fender bass by looking at its serial number. However, according to Reverb, the major exception to all of this is the American Vintage Reissue AVRI series. These have serial numbers starting with V and do not strictly correlate to years. The neck dates on these guitars, however, are usually reliable. The Fender website states 1982 saw the introduction of the US Vintage Series instruments and V prefix serial numbers. The only way to definitively date US instruments with V prefix serial numbers is to remove the neck and check the butt end of the neck heel for a production date, which may be stamped or written there. I didn't want to take the neck off and look at the date. Fortunately, I found the paperwork from a setup Phil did for me a number of years ago, and I had asked him to look at the date when he took the neck off to verify the date. I trust Phil, he definitely knows this stuff, so we know the date is October 18th, 1993. We know it's not a Japanese Fender because it would have Made in Japan printed on the back of the neck, right above the pocket with the serial number underneath it. There were 62 Reissue Precision basses being made in Japan at the time, which are also reputed to be excellent quality reproductions as well. If you look at the Fender catalog for 1993, there are the US Vintage Precision Bass 62 Precision Bass and the Reissue Series Precision Bass 60s Precision Bass. Both come with rosewood fretboards and are available in white. However, the US Vintage basses come with a tweed case, which mine did, and are in vintage white rather than the Olympic white of the Reissue series. Although I can't tell you from any other kind of personal experience, vintage white is reported to have a yellow color due to the tint in the clear coat. I remember paying right around $900 for it when I bought it from Paul at Bizarre Guitar and recall that it was a good deal below list price at the time. I ordered it from him brand new and had to wait for it to be delivered. I'm pretty sure this is the poster on the wall I was looking at when I picked it out. At this point, we can identify the bass as a 1993 US Vintage 62 Precision Bass in vintage white made in the Corona, California factory. I don't see that this is actually called a 62 Reissue P-Bass anywhere in the Fender literature, although they are referred to that way by most people. In fact, you can get lost for hours on the internet exploring the debates around the AVRI, American Vintage Reissue, versus AV or American Original or US Vintage. It all depends on what year Fender was using which names to describe these type of vintage reissue inspired instruments, and how people are choosing to describe these basses. It's musicians and music stores which seem to have come up with the term 62 reissue to describe these over the years. Now in 2023, Fender has the American Vintage 2 Series 1960 Precision Bass. Try as I might, I could not find any other reference on the internet to the Reissue Series Precision Bass, 60s Precision Bass from 1993 or any other year, so I don't know where these basses were being made or what they look like, including what kind of serial numbers they have or where they are placed. It should be noted that they were about half the price of the US vintage ones, according to the poster, have basswood bodies, and may have been being made in Mexico or Japan. I couldn't find a definitive answer during my research, although I did find one Japanese bass being sold online described as a reissue series. Let us know in the comments if you have more information on this subject. This is the bass that I played in the Burn Lacquers in the 1990s after I got it, and have continued to use it in the band a lot of the time since. I used it to record all the tracks on our Laughter EP that we recorded at the Salt Mine in 1994. It's also the bass that was used on the tracks I played on for the AB Studio EP recorded in 1995. I used it on several tracks on my solo EP, and until 2007 this was the only electric bass I owned. I've played it around town in various live situations, and have also used it on some Burn Lacquers tracks that we're working on for our next release. This is supposed to be a very accurate, perhaps almost an exact copy of a P-Bass from 1962, very similar to what Carol Kay and James Jamerson used for all those hit songs from the 1960s. Let's take a look at its features just as we would do in a gear review. The body is made of alder and has a nitrocellulose lacquer paint job. Again, it's supposedly the tint and the clear coat that gives it the yellow color. It has the standard Fender chrome 4-saddle bridge that they've been using since at least 1957. The pick guard is 4-ply synthetic tortoiseshell. There are knurled flat top volume and tone knobs along with a standard 1/4 inch instrument input jack. The pickups are supposedly American vintage 62 split single coil precision bass pickups. I saw them listed that way on one of these for sale, but haven't found any references online to these pickups. Phil did say when I brought it in for a setup that, quote, "these are the good ones," unquote. The bass originally came with a chrome pickup cover, bridge cover, and a thumb rest below the strings. It was not drilled for the bridge cover. I removed the pickup cover and thumb rest as soon as I got it, and have since lost them along with all the other stuff that came with the bass. That was 30 years ago. Who knows? Maybe someday I'll find them in a long-lost box in a storage area somewhere. It fell off the stand soon after I bought it, and it left this chip in the paint. The strap was a Christmas gift from Brad, probably in 1993, and has been on it ever since. It has a maple neck with a real rosewood fingerboard. These basses were all made before rosewood became scarce due to its popularity in Chinese furniture. It has a 34-inch scale length with 20 frets. The inlay dots are made from plastic, not the clay used in the original 1962 precision basses. The fingerboard is often referred to as slab style as opposed to the more rounded fingerboard of the 63 basses, or so the internet says. I haven't handled any other vintage reissue basses other than this one. I have Labella 760 FS deep talk and flat wound strings on it. It has a synthetic bone plastic nut and is supposed to be 1.75 inches. The neck has a gloss lacquer finish. It gives it an orange color and what could be described as a sticky feel. Some people don't like this type of finish on a neck, but I've been playing it for 30 years now and it doesn't bother me at all. These basses come with reverse wind tuners like the originals with a 26:1 ratio. There's also a strap button on the back of the headstock. This feature is often referred to as the hootenanny and was added to Fender basses in 1960. It was eventually removed from Fender basses by 1969. Legend has it that these strap buttons were put there so bass players could orientate their bass more like an upright. Attaching a strap to the headstock of an instrument with a string above the nut was very common. Some people will store their bass in the case with the end of the strap attached to the hootenanny to keep it from bunching up. Debate over what this does to your neck continues on the gear forums. If you search long enough, you can find a picture of Danny Bonaducci from the Partridge Family with a red Mustang bass using the hootenanny. He's mentioned as one of the few people seen using these in discussions, although he didn't actually play bass on the show at the time and only learned later on, so take that for what it's worth. Removing something no one was using makes sense, especially in the early years of the CBS era, and they're no longer part of the modern P-Bass, except of course for vintage reissue basses. Okay folks, let me play this for you and you can hear what it sounds like. Before we go any further though, real quick, if you could subscribe to the channel, that really helps us out a lot. So does hitting the like button and leaving comments and engaging with us. Okay, another thing real quick is, right, if you're going to listen to this on the speaker on your phone, you're really not going to hear what it sounds like. All right. Having said that, here's our signal chain. I'm going out to a passive DI box. I'm splitting the signal to a Fender Rumble 30 amp that I have down here out of camera view. That's just so I can monitor myself without headphones. Very little of that comes through usually on the camera mic, but that is blended in the signal a little bit. Keep that in mind. It's also going through some pedals, which we're not going to play with at first, into my Zoom L8 recorder. No compression, no EQ, no processing. You're just getting the raw, direct signal of the bass, and then we'll play with the pedals later on. All right? Okay, here we go. First of all, volume. Right, that's all the way up. A little bit down. It's really smooth. Sometimes with cheap pots, you'll get like a really massive drop-off in volume. Sometimes it's almost like it's all the way on or all the way off, but not with these. These are really good. Really smooth roll-off. All right, here's the tone all the way up. Right? All right. Let's bring the tone all the way down and hear what that sounds like. Right? There you go. No tone. And now about halfway. All right. Here's tone all the way up. All right, let's listen to it with a pedal. I've got a JHS pulp appeal here that is kind of a cool combination of a compressor, a preamp, and an EQ. You've seen this pedal before if you watch the channel. We're going to listen to how it sounds with that. All right, let's listen to it with some compression from the pulp and peel and with a drum machine so you can hear what it sounds like in a mix. Here we go. Well, there you go. That's what the bass sounds like. I think it sounds terrific. I've mentioned that I do record with this thing quite a bit. So, there you are. When I bought this bass in 1993, it was a copy of a 30-year-old vintage instrument. It recently had its 30th birthday in October, so now it's actually a vintage copy of a vintage instrument. I have seen these being offered for as much as $2,000 and selling for $1,000 or more depending on condition. The reissue basses made in the original Fullerton factory in the early 1980s are especially prized and can fetch a premium price. If you're looking to reproduce that vintage early 1960s P-bass tone without spending $20,000 on a real 1962 Fender bass, this is probably your best option. I have loved this bass all these years, and if I had to sell every instrument I own except for one, this is the one I would keep. It's a very high quality instrument that sounds great and has a ton of history and sentimental value to me personally. And that's why I think this is the best bass in the world. Okay, folks, it's time for
the Featured YouTube Artist of the Week! Yay!
This week's featured artist is Carol Pacey and the Honey Shakers. The band describes themselves as Americana thrash pop. I'm hearing a dash of Ramones and a teaspoon of Uncle Tupelo sprinkled into a combination of classic country and rock influences, simmered on medium high and served over your favorite music streaming service. I've actually met Carol and the band, and they are really, really nice people. They sound great live and have several albums available for your audio indulgence. Go to their YouTube channel, subscribe, watch their videos, hit the like button, and leave them some comments. Let's get the word out about this terrific band so they can gain more fans. Okay, folks, as always, we appreciate everyone who supports us by subscribing, liking, and commenting on our videos. Let us know what you think is the best bass in the world, and if you have any experience with one of the various Fender reissue instruments. We would love to hear your opinion on these matters. Until next time, have a great day.